Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time talking episode 16 of The Flash called Rogue Time. And here's where we get to see the fallout of Barry's time travel situation there. And of course, Barry cannot resist screwing around trying to make the new timeline better than the old one. And considering that the old timeline, involved Captain Singh being crippled, Joe being beat half to death, and possibly the entire city being destroyed, kind of hard of him to blame him for wanting to do that. And then, of course, we can see Harrison Wells going, "No, no, no, Barry, you must do absolutely everything the way it was, no matter how bad things were, because basically time will screw with you back if you mess with it." And the really interesting thing here is that despite what Harrison Wells says, the new timeline actually works out for the most part to be much better than the old one. I mean, yes, Iris doesn't confess her love to Barry, but Barry now knows for sure that her feelings are there. The city isn't destroyed, which is super good. Now, yeah, Captain Cold finds out Barry's identity, but Barry gets a promise from him, which he does have good reason to believe, that Cold will not kill people anymore. And not killing people unless absolutely necessary, and making a point to avoid harming innocents, is kind of a trademark of Captain Cold in the comic books. Here, when we see him first, he's perfectly fine with icing innocent people, pun intended. And also, yeah, Mason Bridge did die, but it wasn't Cisco, whom we of course care about much more. And in the whole situation, now Barry is suspicious of Harrison Wells rather than Cisco, which, well, Barry's in a much better position to actually do something. I mean, when he had confronted Reverse Flash, Cisco knew immediately that he was going to die. There was nothing he could do about that. Barry is in a position to fight Wells. So, again, you have to think that, yes, Wells is doubtlessly better versed in the nuts and bolts of how time travel works, but he also has his own selfish reasons for wanting the timeline to stay exactly as it is. Anyway, so let's kind of talk about what's going on with the characters a little bit. Now, Cisco, again gets a nice bit of spotlight this episode. We get to meet his parents briefly. Well, at least his mother anyway. We get to spend some time with his brother and see that, yeah, Cisco has good reason to not want to be around his family. His brother's been a jerk to him for years. And of course, it's this whole situation with getting taken hostage, where this allows the brothers to kind of reconcile. In the original timeline, it was Iris and Barry, the adopted siblings, who have this major breakthrough in their relationship. And in this new reality, it's the Ramon brothers. Instead of a confession of love, it's, well, in a way, it's a confession of love. They kind of put their relationship back together and realize, like, hey, we're brothers, we've got all these things between us, but at the end of the day, we really do love each other. So that was really cool. I mean, I still kind of feel bad for Cisco not being able to have any success with the ladies, but rumor has it that's going to change. And hey, Cisco, Linda Park is apparently available again, so hey, maybe that's a possibility for you. And give her credit, Linda Park handles the whole situation with Barry very maturely. So some points to her for that. Let's see, what else do we have to talk about? Nothing really in particular to say about Caitlin, although I just absolutely love that whole thing with, like, Barry is suffering from lightning psychosis. And then, of course, Eddie and Iris completely buy this line of utter nonsense. And, like, I remember when I watched this scene, like, Eddie walks up to Barry and hugs him. I'm like, there had better be one hell of an explanation for this. And yes, it's completely ridiculous, but it's no ridiculous than any of the number of lame-ass excuses that Clark Kent threw around in the Daily Planet office. So, you know what? I'm going to let that one slide. Yeah, so I think that kind of covers most everything I had to say on the good guy side of the equation. Now, this episode is also where we're introduced to Lisa Snart, who's, of course, Captain Cold's sister. She in the comics, she originally went by the name of Golden Glider, and that was eventually just sort of shortened down to Glider in modern times. And the more modern interpretation of her is that she's basically was in a way it was kind of like man, I can't talk. As I understand it, the original more outdated version of Lisa just kind of had her basically be Captain Cold's little sister who sort of tagged along into supervillainy and ultimately ended up getting killed in the process. Here, though, in the more modern interpretations of Lisa Snart, she's portrayed as somebody who's just every bit as ruthless as her brother. You know, she's no slouch as a criminal mastermind in her own right, which I think is a much better interpretation of the character. And honestly, she is generally also kind of these days basically the only real staple female in the Rogues. I think Magenta has occasionally been a member of the Rogues, and she's basically a character who has this really crazy crush on the Flash. Think of her as like the Flash's version of Cupid from Arrow, if that makes sense. And she has magnetic powers. But we'll see if they decide to ever do that character. I was never particularly impressed with her, and though I did thought, was it her that became Lady Savitar? I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, so yeah, they bring in Ellen. No, whatever, that girl from the Tomorrow People. I can't remember her name. I keep wanting to call her what is Peyton List? Isn't that her name? Yeah, Peyton List. For a minute I was going to call her Ellen Page, but I know that's not right. But anyway, so she was of course recently on Tomorrow People with Robbie Amell. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we ever get to see Glider versus Firestorm. And just for the record, I'm going to call her Glider because I think Golden Glider is kind of silly. Now she does have a little nod to her previous, her character's old name with the gun that does shoots that gold stuff. And this I saw some people going like, well, if the Rogues have this gun that makes gold, why are they stealing stuff? Well, the Rogues are doing that because, as Captain Cold says, doing crap like this is fun. This is their idea of a good time. It's really not about money. Also, I don't think that gun turns stuff into gold. I think it more like sprays some kind of hardening crap on it that happens to be gold in color, like Cisco probably figured out a way to make it look like gold. I don't think it's actually legitimate gold. It probably just looks like it. Kind of think of it like that quick drying foam that sometimes firemen will spray on fires, you know, particularly chemical fires. I get the impression it's something like that, but you know, don't worry about the details like that. There's really no point. And I did like that seeing Snart, Cold, and Heatwave, you know, being taken prisoner by the Mafia, and then they're like immediately just whip out, just stand up and kill everybody in the room. It's just like, yeah, you know, we don't need our technology in order to do this kind of stuff. And you know, Captain Cold just basically proclaiming himself the crime king of Central City. Again, really over the top, really crazy, but very, very enjoyable. And then we of course get that scene where Snart gets Barry's identity out of Cisco. And I love that Cisco even said, you know, if it had just been me, I'd have totally been willing to sacrifice my life to protect you, but I couldn't sacrifice my brother's life. And you know, and it's great that nobody is upset by this. Everybody understands why Cisco did what he did, and I think it kind of says like if they'd been in his shoes, they would have done the same thing. So it's again nice to see people in the show being mature adults about a tough situation. So this kind of leads to the Flash and Cold striking a little bit of a bargain. And this is what's always really interesting about the Flash and his relationship with the Rogues is they genuinely have a relationship. there is a little bit of an understanding that, okay, in this little game of good guys and bad guys that we play, there are some rules. There are some lines in the sand that we're not supposed to cross. And again, it just sort of makes one of the things that makes Flash in his rogues gallery. And I love that Cold goes, rogues gallery. And he's of course going to immediately, when he tracks down Lisa and Heatwave, go like, okay guys, we are totally called the Rogues now. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of one of the things that's really sort of unique about the Flash and his relationship with his enemies. Is there's a certain level of mutual respect and a certain level of understanding that there's some rules to the game. Let's leave it at that. And yeah, I think that covers everything I had to say about this episode. Again, good stuff. I'm just kind of really, really wanting something really big from Reverse Flash. I mean, I know we're getting towards the season finale. It's not that far away. I think it's something in the neighborhood of like 6 or 7 more episodes till the season finale. But it's just like, it feels like it's time for something really big from Reverse Flash. And yes, he killed Mason Bridge, and yes, Barry is now starting to become very suspicious of him. But it just kind of feels to me like Wells needs to make a move. But, we'll see. And of course, doubtlessly there's big stuff coming down the line. So let's call it here, guys. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.